Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth release. As you can see, we've got a very cool set, the Distortus Rex Island Escape set. And this is very cool because it's only the second version of the D-Rex that we now have from Mattel. There is actually a third coming as well, an RC version. But you can see that the packaging is pretty big. It's definitely a nice sizable release. You've got quite a bit going on here inside the set, along with some human figures that we did not have previously. And then if we turn it around here to the back, you can now see again everything that is basically included in the set, kind of like some sneak peeks of some of the stuff, as well as the fact that we have a Dolores, which is definitely the best Dolores I have seen so far that is actually released as of right now. And then here's basically like an overview of everything included in the set. So let's go ahead, pop this box open and check it out. So here is everything from the set now released from the packaging and kind of assembled and everything. As you can see, we've got a nice big D-Rex. We as well have a boat, a stick, a backpack, Dolores, some missiles. We have Isabella and Reuben, of course, as well. So quite a bit to get through in this set, but it does look really nice, and the D-Rex specifically, I actually might like even more than the larger version that was recently released that I have reviewed on the channel as well. So I'm going to go ahead and move some of this stuff out of the way, and then we'll begin taking a look at all of it. So beginning with Reuben, you can see he looks actually quite nice overall. I think sculpt-wise, they've kind of captured his likeness, but his facial hair almost seems like it's kind of sloppy as far as the way it's applied. But I think they did a decent job as far as his likeness goes. We've got his eyebrows painted out. You can also see the eyes right there. And again, his lips also do feature a little extra color. There's a good bit of life, of course, as you move around the figure when you lead up into the hair and everything. I think that all looks quite nice. Nicely painted with a very dark tone. As you lead down, one thing that I really like about the figure is the fact that we kind of have like rips and tears in the shirt, because the family in Jurassic World Rebirth, they don't fend too well for themselves for the most part in the film, and they do get pretty beat up throughout the movie as far as, like, you know, their clothing. By the end of the film, they're really quite, you know, worn down, and you can see that as far as the outfit that we have here. And again, the fact that we have rips and tears in his shirt, which is of course also painted out. The actual shirt itself is also nicely sculpted. You can see some nice wrinkles and creases and everything to it. As you lead down into his arms, you can also see again some really nice like structure and kind of musculature and everything throughout his arms. We as well have the watch here on the other side. Just coloration for the watch, a dark tone, no real like fine detail to that area. But leading into the hands, again, look at how good the actual sculpting of the hands is. Well, focus, there we go. You can see like the knuckles and everything. It's really, really well done. These newer Rebirth humans have been some of the best I think Mattel has produced yet. As you lead down, you can see again the shorts that he is wearing. Just the slightest bit of sloppiness of the right side here. Our left, his right, you can see again a little bit of the blue has run down onto the leg, but overall not too bad. And again, the actual sculpting of the legs also really nicely done. And then he's got his shoes down here, which are also nicely sculpted and painted with a brownish tone. But as we lead through and we check out the articulation, you can see, of course, the neck articulation left and right. He can also move his head a little bit forward and back. We as well have arm articulation, which can swivel, also come out away from the body. Elbow articulation, which can also swivel. And then as you move down, do we have midsection? Yes, we do. We've got some swiveling going on in the midsection. We can also move the legs out and out away from the body. And then again, the knee forward and back, and can also swivel. So pretty much your, you know, traditional articulation as far as humans go. Then we've got Isabella, and you can see she also looks quite nice. I would say maybe even better than Reuben did. But we've also got, again, the hair nicely sculpted. There's some nice waviness and fine detail throughout. We can see the eyes are colored quite nicely and also kind of feature a gloss coat. We have the eyebrows and the lips, of course, as well. As you lead down, she is wearing a nice yellow jacket. Inside there, we have a nice pink shirt as well. And again, you've got all sorts of wrinkles and creases on the shirt as well as the jacket. Some buttons down the jacket. She as well is wearing some blue shorts, just like Reuben. And then as you lead down, you of course have the skin tone again overtaking the legs, the musculature of the legs also looking quite nice. And she is definitely wearing some sandals, which aren't exactly appropriate for an island filled with dinosaurs, but you can see Mattel did a good job of painting those out as well. Even the undersides you can see. course, if we turn her around, you've got a little hood here on the jacket, but as you lead down again, everything looks really good as far as her overall sculpt and paintwork. Of course, articulation-wise, it's the same left and right, which could, of course, all the way swivel around and go Exorcist style if you want. A little forward and back. Arm articulation can also swivel, also out away from the body. She does not have elbow articulation, though, so a little bit less than Reuben. Do we have swivel in the midsection? We actually do not. We have leg articulation, though, forward and back, and out away from the body, but that's it. No knee articulation either. So a little bit less as far as her articulation goes, but she is definitely a nicely sculpted and nicely painted figure, and it is, of course, just in general nice to have another human from Rebirth. Then as far as some of the other extras, we do have, again, some missiles here. We have this one, which is basically like a little ring, you know, to throw out to somebody in the water. It's obviously got a red and a white. We as well have this missile up here, which is more of like your traditional actual missile, again painted strictly in a red. And then as you move to the actual boat itself, you can see the boat does look really good, and one thing that's really fun is you do actually have pegs on the boat, so you can stand the humans in there, and then they should actually stand quite nicely without falling over, which helps as far as display but also playability. As you move through the boat, you will see the detail looks pretty decent. You've got like some little rails out here, which are, of course, given a grayish tone. The boat primarily is a black, but you have some nice oranges popping up here and there. You, of course, also have the missile launcher up here on the top that does feature a red up on the top of it. It does actually have articulation, so it can swivel all the way around, and then, of course, you push this button to actually launch the missile. We've got a little shield here basically for whoever is driving the boat, because we do actually have the steering wheel back here, which does turn, so you do have some articulation there in that area. And then you can also see, again, kind of like a little crack right here in the middle. This came unassembled, and actually you place it on. It's a separate piece in the packaging, but you can also push it off to break it. So a little, I guess, battle damage that you have for that area, and then of course you can pop it back in. And then you as well have the motor back here, which you can very clearly see also articulates, which is definitely really cool. You can actually spin it all the way around and move it forward and back a little bit as well. And I like that the actual motor of the boat does also have a little bit of a different look, like it's a lot shinier and satiny compared to the rest of the boat. But definitely a really, really cool set. Overall, I think that is fantastic. A great addition to any display, but that one could really come in handy for some photography. On top of that, you as well have Isabella's backpack, which again is definitely something you see throughout the entire film, and in fact you would often find Dolores in there. You can see that as well, as again sculpted nicely, lots of realism added to it. We've got the pockets on the side, which you can't actually use, but they are sculpted on. A little variation of color with some different tones of pinks and whites, and even some kind of blue greens there, more green than anything. But you can see the primary backpack is a pinkish tone. I don't know if it opens or not. It really does not look like it does. I don't think it does. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and say it doesn't actually open like a lot of the backpacks have recently in these sets, but that's not really that big of a deal. We do also have the walking stick for Reuben, because if you have seen the film, he does injure his ankle or his leg, I forget which. I think it's his ankle in the film, so he does need a little bit of help walking. So we do have the stick, which is nicely sculpted and painted with kind of like a greenish tone. Then we as well have Dolores, and look at how nice the actual minifigure is for Dolores. The placement of the pupil could be a little better, but sculpt-wise, I think they nailed it for this figure. Like, it's really, really well done. And for being a mini, the paintwork is quite impressive. We have a darker brown there for the beak. You have a nice dark brown that moves over the top of the body all the way out into the tail. You do have a striping effect as you lead out into the tail, and then you have a lighter tone that transitions very nice and smoothly as you lead down to a really light tone for the underside. She is currently in the position of like a walking pose, sort of, as you move through. A little warp ankle right there, but not too bad. Again, something that could definitely be fixed. And then you lead over here to the other side. You can see, again, the pupil is definitely a little bit sloppy over here as well. But overall, for being a little mini like this, like that's a really small figure, I would say it's quite impressive as a whole, and is probably the best Dolores that we have out currently. And then, of course, we've got our D-Rex, and you can see the D-Rex looks pretty much the same as far as the sculpt goes as the previous previously released version. The only real difference as far as the sculpt goes that I can personally see and pick out that would be different on this one compared to the other one is this front arm or leg or whatever you want to call it is a little bit different than the one that is on the larger D-Rex, but other than that I would say the sculpt looks to be the same, and I did just take a moment to kind of look at the two together, which we will of course do a comparison, but I can say again that the sculpt, you know, outside of this arm here is pretty much the same on this one as we had seen on the first version. So no need to really go over the sculpt too much, but when you get nice and close, you can see again that the detail is absolutely magnificent on this figure, just like it is on the larger one. As far as the coloration goes, which is one of the biggest differences between this and the first version, you can see that we do have like a light sort of yellowish tone for the primary body color. We have a very dark brown there around the eye, then we've got an orange eye, and then of course the pupil is either a black or the dark brown. I'm not entirely sure. Kind of looks like it might be a black. But you have a different shade of a dark brown as you lead up to the top of the head, and that does run down through the body. And I like that they've allowed some of the yellowish tones to kind of creep through some of the browns up here on the back, which does look quite nice. We as well have a light tone, kind of like a light gray or an off-white for the lower jaw. That leads down here through the underside and overtakes the other set of arms. As you lead down, though, you can see that disappears, leading into the stomach region, basically right past the chest. We do have a strong speckling for the figure. As you move through, you'll see it's extremely strong, like very, very much so, quite abundant through the entire figure. But one of the most exciting things about this one for me is the fact that this, similar to the Spinosaurus Danger Pack, is just a straight up articulated version of the D-Rex. There aren't any action features associated with this one, which is, in my opinion, quite exciting because I love just having straight up articulated figures at times. You can see the inside of the mouth, of course, has the tongue, but also features a really nice pinkish tone in there. Beautiful gloss coat applied as well. The teeth do have that nice, genuine, sharp look to them because they are that softer material, which does allow them to have that sharp look, and they are painted with a yellowish tone as well. Again, pretty much what you usually see from Mattel, but as you can see, the jaw articulates really nicely. The teeth interlock really nicely as well. No neck articulation, unfortunately, as you move down, but when you lead into the front leg, you do have the ability to articulate the leg just forward and back really nicely, really smoothly. As you can see, it can completely go around and also out away from the body, so that's really well done. Same deal with these arms. You can articulate them, again, forward and back. They don't come out away from the body, but you can get them really held back into the body quite far or out, you know, a little bit higher if you want them. Both arms articulate the same way. Another thing that is really nice is you do have swivel articulation in the wrist, and you can also articulate the wrist forward and back, which is good. The hand is a little bit different because the other one is kind of like positioned where its hand is down just flat like that. This one has the ability to actually keep the wrist and everything in like this. You've got, again, some nice scoots down the fingers, and then you have pretty nicely sculpted claws, which are, again, kind of sharp looking. They don't have any paintwork, sadly, but they do have a bit of a gloss coat, which is nice. And you have that exact same articulation as you move over here. Again, the ability to go forward and back, also out away from the body, and then again the swivel in the wrist and the ability to kind of go forward and back. Same type of articulation on both sides. Unfortunately, no elbow articulation, though. The larger D-Rex does have elbow articulation on the right-hand side. But as you move back, in typical Mattel fashion, that darker brown here moving over the back does disappear basically above the hip region, and then it's gone. You do have leg articulation, though, forward and back, and it works way nicer than the leg articulation on the larger one. Yes, we do have swivels. Okay, so swivels in the ankle as well, which is something I was curious about. And again, no claw paint or anything, unfortunately, for the feet, which is definitely sad, but it's not the end of the world. But then as you move out, you do have the ability to articulate the tail up, down, left, right. Does it swivel? Yes, it absolutely does. And then you actually have this section. Yep, can swivel out here as well. And of course, you're going to see pretty much the same thing again when you look at it from the other side. So, in my opinion, this is definitely the best D-Rex from Mattel so far. As far as the actual playability of the boat goes, again, we have the missile launcher, so let's go ahead and launch. Actually, we'll shoot the D-Rex with it, because why not? We'll go ahead and shoot the D-Rex with the missile. Wow, that whaled him. He definitely smacked him pretty good. So as you can see, it's got some decent velocity coming out of the boat. And you do have, again, two different missiles as far as that goes. Also, again, you have this button here. which, as you can see, once you press that button, this area just completely launches off the boat. And then, just because I was really quite curious, as you can see, if you were interested, the D-Rex can actually stand on 2 legs. It does not need both hands down, which does show that it does have pretty good balance. Mattel did a pretty good job as far as that goes. I don't know if, we position it up higher. Can it still stand on 2 legs? Yes, it absolutely can, and that does show you that again. So that's pretty cool. If you are interested in displaying your D-Rex, bipedally, you can. Also, there is the fax app code if you would like to add this one to your collection. So I don't think we need to do a whole lot else outside of like measurements and stuff. So we'll just go ahead and move that out of the way. And I think as far as the measurements go, the things people are going to be most interested in would be the dinosaurs. So we'll measure them straight out of the gate. For a length, you were looking at on Dolores about 1.75 inches or around 4.5 centimeters. And then for a height, you can see only about 1/2 inch or 2 centimeters. For the humans, I guess we'll go ahead, since we're already in the position for them, we'll get the measurement on them. You're looking at about the 3.75 inch size range, or around 9.5 centimeters for Reuben. And then for Isabella, about 3 inches, maybe just a hair under, or around 7.5 centimeters. And then, of course, actually, I guess we could measure the boat if you really want to know. But for a length on the boat, about 8 inches or a little over 20 centimeters. And then for a height, about 4.5 inches or 12 centimeters. And then for the new D-Rex, from the tail to the head, about 16.75 inches or 42.5 centimeters. And then for a height, about 7 inches or 18 centimeters. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day human being. Next to everything in this set, you can see that, of course, Reuben is right there in the same similar size range as Muldoon. Obviously, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus is much smaller, and the D-Rex is significantly larger than everything else that we have here next to it. Also, when it comes to the Dolores figure, you can see that the Dolores is, again, significantly smaller even than your standard Mattel or Captives Mini. And then when it comes to a comparison with the D-Rex, you can see a standard-sized kind of Wild Roar figure with an Irritator here next to it. Is obviously a bit smaller. But I think the comparison that will probably be most helpful here is that the Spinosaurus from the Spinosaurus Danger set is roughly in the same similar size range as the D-Rex from this set. So if you do have that Spino, or you have seen it already, you're going to have a pretty good idea of the size of this D-Rex. And then here is a comparison with the D-Rex from this set next to the original D-Rex that Mattel had released, the much larger version. And you can very clearly see that, again, there is a pretty big difference in size, as this newer D-Rex is quite a bit smaller than the older one. So if you don't want a giant one, you can grab this newer one once it does eventually start to show up here in the United States. So this brand new Mattel Jurassic World Rebirth Distortus Rex Island Escape set is definitely a really cool release. It absolutely is my favorite version of the D-Rex so far. I do really quite like the other one, and specifically I like the darker tone of color on the original one, so I'm not a huge fan of the colors of this one. I feel like it would have looked better if it was even darker than even the other one, but at least it does have a little difference, so it doesn't look exactly the same as the other D-Rex, but smaller. Sculpt-wise, of course, it is the same sculpt, which means it is absolutely incredible when it comes to the fine detail, but this one has, again, just tons of articulation throughout, making it really fun, really posable and playable, and definitely superior as far as display options go compared to the other one. It's also, again, a bit smaller, so it makes it easier to add to your collection. Then you've got Reuben and Isabella, and I think they are definitely two really well done figures. Beautiful sculpts, beautiful paint jobs, nice articulation. Again, it's great to have more humans from Rebirth now to add to our collections. You as well have the boat, which is really cool. Again, probably one of the nicest like boat type figures that I can recall coming from Mattel. Just in general, it's like a really well done addition to this set. Sculpt wise, I think it looks great, and it does have quite a bit of playability where you can kind of throw out the like area that holds the steering wheel. You've got the missile launcher and a bit of articulation throughout with like the motor and everything moving. Then you've got the extras with the other missiles, the backpack and the stick, which is really cool. And of course you also have Dolores, which is awesome. So if you do want this set, I actually ordered this from Amazon France, so it was a little bit pricier than it probably will be here, but I sometimes am impatient, and Plush Boy Q let me know that it was on there, so again, a massive thank you goes out to him. I placed an order, not sure if it would actually go through or not, and it did, so really happy to now have this one here in my collection. If you are interested in ordering it from Amazon France, I will include a link in the description to where you can do that, but otherwise, again, hopefully it shows up at some point here in the near future. So let me know in the comment section what you guys think of it, and of course, like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.